Alright, let's go ahead and get started. First by petting the dog. I shall not forget. Who's a good boy? Are you? We need to have a talk. There's... whatever. There's no point in trying to train the dog anymore. It won't be trained. But you're still a good boy. Ugh. Alright. Hey Duffs. What map do we want to play first? Let's just do some swamp. Some easy swamp. Starting out with. What character though? Let's actually, we haven't done Bagman in a while. I don't think we played Bagman in the last stream. Our poor little Bagman. Alright. What gun though? Saw? Super saw? Yeah, why not? Let's go ahead and restore you. Beautiful saw. With a grenade launcher. People are excited for grenades, but they don't understand the implication of what happens when we get grenades. And that means everyone else gets grenades. And that's what I'm truly terrified of. It's going to be a two-way street, and it's going to be a terrifying two-way street of hell. Alright. Ozone Swamp. Oh, I need to bring a drill. I'm so bad about bringing drills, and they're so necessary. Also, let me go ahead and just go private. And like, interesting, I don't really actually mind the fact that the quest requires it. Hey, Momentum, how's it going? Like, I don't mind the fact that sometimes you'll have quests like that where it's like a hidden requirement. It can feel bad though, but like, I kind of like that fact, but like, I guess each their own, but... Maybe in like, I guess the description or perhaps like the dialogue, it should hint to you that you might need a lock. Maybe it does actually. Troy, like look next time. No. Don't you do it. Alright, looking for the jammer. Oh, that's convenient. Well, since we're already here. I would be I think that ultimately goes against their approach, Quad Eye, of trying to show, like, or trying to, like, kind of drop hints here and there, and not necessarily be forthcoming. Can you not open? Whatever. Like, there's definitely different ways of doing it, and I think they've chosen one particular way. I think the way, like, a cool way of doing it is as opposed to giving us, like, an exact map per se, more of give us, perhaps, like, stories of certain areas, right? Kind of like they do with Lordos. So, like, we kind of get pieced together the front lines over time. And naturally, these are from stories, too, so they're not entirely, like, 100% true. Dropping a map is one thing, but, like, dropping a map through a story and dropping a map through like different things you hear anecdotally is really cool. And also make sure, like, because it's anecdotal and it was from what's a story someone told and not like a meta screen they presented, it's subject to change and interpretation.
Not sure where.
But there is also, yeah, I mean, you are right too, that the approach of just dropping a map works also. It's a lot easier, but like, I think you do lose something for such an easy approach. Yeah, for the most part, that's kind of the vibe they got from Q&As, really, is that, like, they do want to do, like, the Dark Souls sort of storytelling. Well, at the same time, though, we can kind of see with Lordos, they're willing to be more forthcoming, at least in a narrative capacity. What was the last quest I picked up? Okay, yeah. Grand schedule. Yeah, we kind of, well, we know the map, like, so that would be a map perhaps of the formation of Europa, subject to change naturally. It also doesn't include South America, right? So like, those maps aren't necessarily like 100% consistent and accurate. Hey, Peter. What do you mean, like, people in the sense of, like, picking up the game after the water update? I imagine quite a few people came over. Like, keep in mind, right, appreciate it. Like, some people, like, this is perfectly fair to you, right? Some people have played the game in early access and are now waiting for a much more later release. Like, they got their demo, and then are gonna wait for, like, the full release before diving into it again, because it does need time in the oven. I mean, you can see them on Steam charts, Peter. We have, I think it's usually between, like, I think it fluctuates between 200 400 a day. I haven't looked in a while though, so I'm not entirely sure. Which is like 200 400 a day is very accurate for a niche game that isn't live service and is still heavily early access. People are like, some people will say it's not Helldivers and it's like it's not doing that good at all, but like it's not compared to Helldivers 1. Helldivers 1 was a niche game and a new IP. And this is essentially that right now. And like, as we see with Helldivers 1, right? Like, oh, that was nice. It just takes time and time in the oven. And like, honestly too, looking at Arrowhead also, just used as an inspiration because Helldivers 1 came out in 2015, if I recall correctly. And they didn't really get their big moment until Helldivers 2 came out, and that was, you know, however many years later, 2024, so 9 years later. It was a lot of work between Helldivers 1 and 2. I'm not saying, you know, them going to the next game after making this is gonna be like that, but you can see trajectories utilized that way. I am actually fairly ignorant, Quad Eye. I have seen the art of Trench Crusade. I have not actually delved that much into the lore of Trench Crusade. So I'm a bit ignorant on that regard. But between 40K and Forever Winter, I'm pretty sure Forever Winter 40K sounds so much worse. Hey, Panda. Yeah, like, considering I've seen the Art of Trench Crusade 2, I would probably say, like, this, because this is bleak and desolate, but, like, at the same time, it's not that too crazy far changed. Like, don't get me wrong, it's definitely changed, but it's not crazy bad. Like, for the most part, at least in this game, really, there are going to be weird circumstances where you have a fate worse than death, but for the most part, most of your fates will just be death. There are so many fates in 40K outside of just death. Hey, stop that. Man, the LMG spread now is real strong. It's like firing a shotgun. Yeah, there is toothy, right? Like, there's definitely, they could be adding more fates worse than death in this game too. But at the current moment, right, it just, a lot of the instances are just you die. And like, it's not usually like a painful death, it's just like pretty quick. For all the shit Grabber gets, right, Grabber is a pretty quick way to go. He smacks you down a few times and decapitates you. And then, like, in comparison to, say, for example, the Dark Eldar taking you. Or your soul being used to power some machination. Or getting you know, like in Darktide, right? Getting a plague from the plague guy, Virgil. Lots of things can seemingly go wrong for a random civilian. Or I guess servant of the Emperor in 40K. I love orcs in most settings. I love 40K orcs so much. If it wasn't my, like, my intense love for a straight man, it would almost always be orcs for 40K I would play. They just have, like, this derpy aspect about them, right? Where, like, they're just here for a good time. Thanks, Boo Boo. Appreciate it. The orcs are the epitome of not here for a long time, here for a good time. They're like, they're the precursor to vibes. Am I out of meds? Alright, I need to drop stuff then, because I should have plenty of meds I feel in here. I think. Yeah. I don't need dirt. So, what up? I usually don't try and abuse things that are gonna get changed into the future all that much. Especially when it requires me to change the way I'm playing. There's nothing wrong with it, but like, it's not long for this world. So I'm not gonna bother getting used to it. And I'm not generally a fan of the looting system right now anyway. I think like, for a lack of better terminology, it feels like having to both open the bag with the wheel, like the circle when you're opening the bag, and then search it. And that takes time, like, as a form of double taxation. America vibes. Like, Do you really need two systems that tax you time-wise and not just one? Oh, I don't main Bagman, but like, no, it's just that I generally don't try to abuse things that are like very clearly bugs. I'll still probably do them occasionally by accident, but like, for the most part. Alright, we're pretty full. Probably do one more room. Blood. Well, in regards to pneumatic jump, I think pneumatic jump's amazing. No, like, the thing with pneumatic jump, right, is that it's just real derpy, and like, it's fun to use, but like, outside of like niche scenarios, like trying to use Shantytown or trying to get on cemetery, or going around cemetery. And I will say, my current me saying try not to use exploits while me playing cemetery, I don't know. Cemetery is weird, right? So for those unfamiliar, there's a way of kind of, I don't want to say getting outside of the map, but kind of sort of, to get around the grabber and the pipes area. And not like 100%, but just partially. And it involves a pneumatic jump, basically kind of going in a way out of bounds. The problem is that like, that out of bounds area feels like two things. A great reward for someone who brings a jump, and B, just an immaculate vibe check, right, of being a rat looking in through the grates. I feel like there's a lot of that right now in the game where, like, there's not a lot of elements where you can feel like a true rat through, like, just kind of navigating the map in a clever way. I wanted to execute you. Oh well. And that's perfectly fair, yeah, Blood Panda. If the grabber can cheat, you can cheat. Hey, Swiss guy, the biggest thing I will say, the absolute biggest thing is get a silencer on your gun as soon as possible. Aramaki or Grillo sells them, and they change the way how the game feels immensely. So as soon as you unlock Aramaki or Grillo, is get a silencer and just use a silencer until you feel like you can take that off. And even then, I will still usually not, like, they're different experiences, right? If you want a harder game that punishes you for shooting, you know, don't use a silencer. But if you want to learn the game a bit more, definitely use a silencer. That and tac cam. Utilize a tac cam. The tac cam is great for learning maps along with containers. Yeah, do not wait for a suppressor in game. It will never drop. Thanks, appreciate it. What up? I do agree with you. There's a lot of things that need changes, and I wouldn't even say it's a direct nerf, but just a reworking of the sound aggro, right? But I do agree with you in that, like, kind of that base premise where just comparing unsilenced guns to silenced guns, there's an issue. Like, it's binary, and it probably shouldn't just be binary. There should be a lot more nuance to silencers and the guns and so on and so forth. Not too shabby. Yeah, the one system I basically said right was having a soundscape. My biggest pet peeve is that kind of like enemy at the gates-esque. There's plenty of times where there's a lot of ambient sound, like in the middle of a fight, or like two giant mechs fighting. And like, the fact that your gun's powerful enough to draw aggro in those circumstances where it feels like it should be deafening, it is like, I think, not great. So kind of, I was basically saying is like almost have a sound heat map over your level that populates in somewhat real time. And as units shoot and add sound to that, it kind of raises a certain numeric value for that area. And when you shoot your gun, it's compared against that, and it's modified against that. And it affects aggro in certain ways. That way, like, if you're actually in a very heavy combat zone with a lot going on, you can actually get away with like a SCAR or like guns that are unsilenced. And I also think one aspect too is just, I think the guns are a bit too modular. Like, it's fun to have customization in your game, but like at the same time, when you're trying to make things feel, I guess, unique or bespoke, or like feel like they fit a role, it kind of muddies the waters quite a bit. Like, are you trying to have a realistic approach or a stylistic approach, I guess is the question to ask, really. And it feels like a weird blend where we have these very stylized characters, but these very kind of not like kind of generic guns, actually. Yes. Stop calling me a rat, it's hurtful. That's only a term we can use. Yeah, okay. Any more stairways? No. Oh, this is... No, let's go with M4. Do. And we're good. Regions, stairway, crater. Hey, Randy. Hey, gang. Starring Jack Black, oh no. I will actually say, what up? I will say, actually, I actually like this. How many times can I say actually in one sentence? The SCAR unsuppressed, I think, is fine because of the amount, like, it gives you so much power. When you want to go loud, the SCAR heavy is just, like, I guess super heavy, is just amazing. It deletes anything you shoot at it. The guns still don't feel good right now, so I think it makes the gun feel a little bit off because the gun system, the gunplay right now is not great. But like, I do actually enjoy the vibes of the SCAR, at least some of the modifications for it, right? And the damage it does and the trade-off you get, right? Like, you get a very powerful gun, the downside of it not being silenced, and it has a real drawback, right? I wonder if the devs have a swear jar, or not a swear jar, but like an Elysium reference jar at their offices. Like, in a sense of anytime a player mentions Elysium, they put $1 in the jar. No, they don't. All silencers do. Like, well, so, like, it's not really necessarily that silencers reduce the damage, it's just that the SCAR has a high base damage with the caveat it can't have a silencer. But no, like, silencers don't do all that much right now. Or sorry, silencers, like, most mods don't really change all that much on guns right now outside of like very meta things like sound and then I guess aiming down sights with red dots. Oh no, that is like, yeah, for Elysium, that is the vibe with Elysium, right? It is the perfect mid movie. It has cool world building, it has cool tech, but like the actual narrative told through it's passable. If you view the story as a medium to get the world explored, it's fine. But no, it's like the most perfect like 7.5, 7 story ever, or a movie ever. But like, and I say that too, right, in the sense of those movies, like, for great movies to exist, both bad and mid movies need to exist also, really, right? There's definitely a place for mid movies. So I'm happy it exists. I would say District 9 though is pretty like not mid though. But for his catalog of movies, right, that's really I would say probably the only one that gets that far along. Yeah, in a way, King, I think it was kind of supposed to be not necessarily a love letter to South Africa, but more of just like showing the culture of South Africa to some extent. And he does that through his movies, right? But like showing them, like it was ham-fisted. I don't agree with you. Having the movie was ham-fisted. But at the same time, if the movie's part of the movie's goal was like kind of just showing the culture of South Africa to some extent, or part of the culture, it's probably important to get that out there. Because it's I can tell you right now, being American, well, actually, I will say, we'll not go far into this conversation in this regard. But like, for better or for worse, a lot of people only know what South Africa is in America because of Elon, and we can leave it at there. But like, I would say before he grew to prominence, not many Americans knew what the hell South Africa was. Not even I, right? So District 9 kind of exposed me to that, and then more of his stuff exposed me to more of it. I had an idea what Dire Enterwood, I can't even say it right, was until I had an idea who they were, but like I didn't actually know who they were until the movie. No, Elysium did a great job with its tech, right? It is like Elysium did a good job grounding its tech like that, exoskeletons being like kind of infused. Yeah, and Trevor Noah is great too. Trevor Noah's just been like a newer version though. He didn't come out, I think he was like late 2010s really. I wonder if he just wanted, I mean, King, on the plus side though, him letting it cook for that long might be a good thing, because it might have like been him waiting to make sure he had a good idea before firing, right? Considering how, I guess, renowned or like cult classic-y District 9 is, it feels like he probably could have got it made earlier than now, but like he might have been waiting for a good idea. No, his movies have a great vibe to them, right? And like, even if you don't like, his stories won't always be a hit, but like, I will generally enjoy just watching his movies in general without like, he makes a lot of mid movies, right? That was the start of this conversation. And mid doesn't mean bad, right? Not every movie can be like an Oppenheimer. Or, for example, Apocalypse Now, so on and so forth. Whatever, like, you know, great movie you want to say. American perspective means that if you talk to the general population of America, they generally, outside of the mass, it's on the ground, outside of the mass kind of big things in the news, are very fairly ignorant of what's going on in the world. And just geography and geopolitics. Not even, and I wouldn't even say like nitpicky geopolitics, but just on a general high level view. Yeah, bad at geography and just unaware what the hell is going on in the world. This is Stairway to Gate. This is the newest map in the March patch. Yeah, and it's also just something that's not pushed very heavily in our education system. Like, for example, to give you an idea, the only time that I ever learned about Africa at all during my school system was in 7th grade for like basically one grade, and that was it. Outside of that one time of learning about Africa, it was never really raised up again throughout the entire like K through 12 education. So for some reason, in 7th grade, you weren't paying attention. Just any information you learned about Africa is gone outside of exterior alternative sources. Or you learning on your own, right?
Hard run. At least
And then like for most part, right? There's classes you can take that kind of go outside of that, but like that's usually more like electives or slash not mandatory classes. Like if you go into like world history. But those aren't like standard curriculum. They're inclusive. It is. It's got a good art style to it. It's still very rough in a gameplay aspect. It's early access and it's cooking. But if you want to come along for the ride, it's certainly interesting. It's fun. Just the whole... I always give this disclaimer to everyone. If you don't have a lot of patience for early access gameplay in the sense of jankiness and incomplete systems and not a lot of progression, maybe let it cook for a bit. What do you mean by buggy? I'm not sure if I follow by what you mean by buggy. I haven't noticed any bugs with it myself, but please elaborate. Exactly, John. Like, I actually haven't been in school forever, but right, but like, especially in regards to history, it's just not something brought up, and like in the K through 12 education in America, it's just not something very highly reinforced in a way. Oh, it's probably just work in progress. So when they're in the process of updating the guns and fixing the guns, and it seems that they were only able to do about half of it so far, or like a part of it, and like a lot of the guns are just kind of still in this area of like limbo, really. Gao, you can use it. It's not terrible. Let's go on, Chucky. Thanks. It's just like if you want to use the NPC companions, they actually work, and the mule's great. It's just they're pretty derpy with movement and aggro, so it can create some friction sometimes. If I could have early on, right? If I could have the mule bring in gear, I would use the mule a lot more in the early game. But because you can only load up the mule when you're already in raid and not before raid, it kind of, I think, removes some of its use case that I would personally use, right? Because in the early game, your container is pretty awful, and so you can't bring a lot of stuff in, and so like having this kind of restock spot would be really nice. I missed that. Yeah. Be very careful doing this, by the way. There's a reason why I'm jumping and not mantling. Mantling will always take you over a railing, so be very careful. But okay, this is the spot I was referring to earlier. This is kind of like an out of bounds area. Well, let me rephrase. It is an out of bounds area. There's no pathing up here. But like this feels like peak rat to me, right? It feels like I'm being a rat, kind of just like looking on from outside. Especially if I was in the grates too, right? Like behind the grates. I want to see if there's actually the book below there, though. Oh well, it is. It is. Where's the dog at? I hear you now. Hey Nesk, how's it going? There you are, you jerk. Yeah, what up? The progression's not really there right now, like you said too. There's kind of like plateaus, right, as you progress with the game, and like basically rig progression kind of sucks. Yeah, and it doesn't really go anywhere after you like get the big rig too. Like the progression almost is basically getting the big rig, and once you get the big rig, you kind of are done. You have achieved maximum progression. But like the reason why I do that is because opening that door back there that we spawn behind is a massive pain in the ass with dog. So just going around him and not opening that door can save you a lot of pain. All right, I don't want to open this door because it will piss them off. Alright, well, dog is currently murdering someone, so... Are all these doors closed? Alright. Knife Nasco. Yeah, like that is... Yeah, that's the crazy thing about 40k, right? There will always be something... to like, there is so much media for 40k, you can never run out of content for it. It depends on just how deep you want to go. Let me pick you up. Yeah, a few items on this map have been buggy recently picking up. Alright, I didn't want to pick up anyway. The night shift, right? The AI-driven night shift, they just have door repair bots. Yeah, a lot of it's just that too, right? In this early access period, it's just kind of the vibes of the game for sure. I do hope, like for example, they don't like having important vibe, having a good vibe and aesthetic to your game is important for longevity, but at the same time, I hope they just don't overly rely on it to do all the heavy lifting. But we'll see. So King, the secret is that the chips are actually, if you go to Mech Trench, right? So on Mech Trench, there is a grinder there that they recycle bodies in. And so, my personal canon is that, nothing goes unused, in regards to recycling, right? And so that these chips are, just say, some keratin, they're keratin. And if you don't know keratin, you can Google what parts of the human body are keratin. And don't get me wrong, they're fried. But yeah. I don't think I've actually heard that momentum, but I haven't listened that hard either. The vibes I get from the radio chatter right now for all the factions is more just like to sound cool as opposed to be actually like understandable.
Not quite the best, but not the worst.
I'm sure Blood Panda, like, if this game ever becomes more mainstream, plenty of other YouTubers will come into it. mean, you kind of saw that at launch, right? It's just that, you know, EA game can only have so much going on. Probably just waiting for a big patch then, I guess. I don't think it will, Swiss, not in like that regard. Like, it's not gonna be a Helldivers, which I think is why comparing it to Helldivers 2 is unfair. But in regards to like establishing an IP, I think it's nice. Naturally, just like you can only ever put a dent in the 40k Grimdark Stranglehold. I have no idea. Whatever is it, whatever is a smaller lockbox, yeah. Whatever it is, we can't open it. I don't know if it's okay, it depends, right? Because I would actually say on a Grimdark level, this is much more appropriate than 40k. 40k can get pretty bad pretty quick, but I guess the 40k like aspect of it has basically almost like high fantasy. Like 40k in a sense is like almost high fantasy Grimdark. Naturally it's sci-fi, right? But like it's got that high fantasy sort of feel to it where it's like everything is like really out there. This is almost like a very grounded, or fairly grounded, not all the grounded, but fairly grounded kind of Grimdark setting. I mean, go look at the Drakari. It's not, yeah, 40k is not that Grimdark, but it has plenty of, like, very grimy things in it, right? Like, you know, Drakari. Like, if you go looking, 40k's got plenty of real bad stuff. I mean, that's very true. I mean, they are their worst enemy. Yeah, like if you look real hard, like it's not surface level like this game is, but if you start looking a little bit deeper into 40k, like past the surface, it gets real dark real quick. It just kind of puts it on the user or the person consuming the setting to actually look a little bit deeper. And there is the aspect too, right, where like generally speaking, nothing is, you can't really equate anything or lots of things in 40k to like the real world here. Well, almost anything in this game you can equate to the real world. It takes a lot of inspiration from that. Why not? Also, why do I keep dragging 5.56 in when I have an AK? Game, or my mind, please. Brain. Grab right ammo. Okay, we're good. Yeah, King. I mean, that's. I hope they didn't learn their lesson from WotC in regards to. I don't fault WotC for making the kind of baseline lore or mechanics of D&D much more mainstream, because it's naturally still up to the DM to change it as they see fit. So I don't fault WotC all that much, but it does seem that maybe 40k has taken inspiration from sort of like the mainstream trend that Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast did with D&D, into making it much more approachable. The caveat or change with like that though being raised, it's ultimately up to the DM to say what they do and don't allow. and the rules are always kind of this gray area, right? Is like, you know, allow X, Y, or Z or don't. And I think too, like on that standpoint also, I think exploring it outside of a tabletop setting first might do it very well. Like in standing for this game, right? In the sense of getting your Grimdark world established outside of a tabletop setting might be really good, because you can kind of approach it from a game perspective, right? As opposed to just like, essentially what I'm saying here, right, is if you have something in 40K, right, where, say for example, it doesn't translate to a game very well, you kind of have to leave it out or ignore it or try to actually make it work, and that's a hard process, right? In contrast to, say, a game like this that's kind of establishing its lore, it can work in gameplay considerations into its lore, right, to make it not seamless but much more smoothed over. Daniel, I haven't played Dark Tide in a while. I don't know. I honestly have not been playing a lot of games outside of just this recently, mainly because making videos takes a lot of time. Yeah, gas mask. On a note, it does definitely feel like they're not supposed to be kind of heard. I have played Warframe a very long time ago. I was originally like a Prime member of that, right? But like I find Warframe, I feel, is like almost suffers from wanting to continue a game for 15 years. It's got, I don't want to say Warframe has bloat, because I haven't played it enough to actually say that factually. All I can say is that Warframe has a lot of tension as a newer or returning player in regards to how it presents its systems to you. I kind of, anytime I start trying to play that game again, I just feel absolutely overwhelmed. And I wouldn't even say, Daniel, like, right, it's okay for games that have grind, because naturally, like, they're free to play, they need to have grind and like that kind of trade-off, right? But I feel like Warframe's biggest sin, right, is it just has it doesn't do a good job of onboarding returning players or new players. Well, maybe it might do it actually for new players. I don't know. I haven't played a new player experience in Warframe forever, but like, me as a returning player in Warframe, I was just entirely lost. Oh, Toothy. Toothy would be... I feel like in the grand scheme of things, Toothy would be pretty quick. Like, eventually Toothy will kill you. Like, it would suck getting captured by Toothy, don't get me wrong, but like, he can only slowly digest you for so long. The Jakari can torture you for eons, if they really want to. Yeah, I haven't actually played a new player experience in Warframe in, like, actually ever. I've always been a returning player. Yeah, like, the Jakari, the Dark Eldar in 40K, no, like, their whole thing is they're going to torture you for a very, very long time. They will keep you alive to torture you. Or rather, they won't let you die. Like, that's perfectly fair, right? Like, the only thing you can kind of compare to this to 40K is just the Grimdark setting, right? Which is why it gets raised up a lot. But they're, I would say that, yeah, you are right. They're not that equivalent. the scope of things between the two games is vastly different, right? And along with the tech. Oh, I believe it's improved. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I am far from saying Warframe's a bad game, because I haven't played it enough to say that. It's more in the sense of that, like, anytime I've tried to play it, I have found it unapproachable. All right, so we have... Did I take my cigarette? God damn it, game. All right, did I pick up cigarettes? This is why I just really do not like the current system for eating consumables. All right, do I have cigarettes down here? And this pile of stuff. All right. Got plenty of alcohol. Yeah, like having like basically a Sherpa in that regard, right, to kind of guide you with what the hell is going on, helped probably a lot in that regard. It's also a game too where, like, yeah, like part of the game is the grind, right? So if you're not looking for a time sink, like, Warframe probably misses for you. I definitely think right now we are, like, I think Lordos is a good example though, right, of how to do it in a nice way. I would say that Lordos kind of edges too close to exposition, kind of like a massive lore dump. But, like, if he does do it in a slow way, if you do the quest line, right? All right, I need to find cigarettes for this poor soul. No, there might be some in here actually. There is a slight concern though, I will say. We have HKs on us, but I have yet to actually get shot, which is not a great sign. Because that, if you don't, when you get HKs and you're not being shot pretty quickly after that, it generally means you got another HK, a different type of HK. Is that someone dead now? Hey, Ethan. Oh no, Guai, that's like, it's still very early access, and I would honestly say it would, well, on that point, right, for a newer player, it's probably like a 5. For someone playing the game as much as I have, it's definitely like, yeah, 3, 4. And that's like mainly because it's undercooked, right? It needs a lot more time. I mean, I like 40k. 40k is one of those things, right, where I like things that are grounded. And I wouldn't say this is like 100% grounded, but like this is way more grounded than 40k, right? Like 40k is in some aspects the high fantasy of Grimdark. It is a space opera. So like this, like it's bleak and no, okay, we're good. It was just late. And like I would say too, you can kind of treat, really? You can kind of treat my viewpoint on Warframe kind of similar to that of 40k, where I don't mind 40k. I do like I play Space Marine 2, I play Space Marine 1. I enjoy the media they put out in that game, or that, you know, setting. There is a degree of unapproachableness to the lore, right? It's one of those things, right, where like if you look at all of the media they have over the 40 years that they've been up, it's a lot, right? Yeah, RC, and that's the issue too, right? In the sense of you could have signed on in one era, and because things like businesses have to change over time, or do just change over time from just natural things. Yeah, like stuff like that happens, right? In everything, right, there will always be the old guard resisting change. That's just how things are. Yeah, momentum, that's basically it, right? Like, Forever Winter is a much more grounded sort of... It's grounded and still stylized, right? Like, it's not trying to be realistic, but it's trying to be grounded. I need cigarettes. I need European people to die. All right, please have cigarettes. I mean, we'll see. I think if anyone can do it, Cabal can, right? I don't think you'll ever get actual viewership of a 40K piece of media outside of the fans actually liking it himself. And like, if anyone can do it, it's gonna be Cabal. There we go. So I guess we'll see with Amazon. I think the secret layer was good, right? Like, I enjoyed the 40K secret layer. Yeah, it's been a long time since I read a 40K book, but like, there's plenty of them, right? But like, it's a lot, right? It's, for extra context, you have to understand how I view things too. When I approach things, I generally try and want to understand them from a pretty... Enjoy your cigarettes. Doesn't that count? Okay, did it count? Let me give it back to you then. I try and generally understand things holistically. Like, in the sense of, like, all of the aspects of it. And you just can't do that in settings like 40K at this point. And, like, that doesn't mean I don't like things, for example, this, right, where things are unexplained. Like, there's nothing to know because naturally just locked off, right? It's vague on purpose. I love Dark Souls lore, for example, and it does a great job of that. Like, you know, having plenty to tell and not telling it, so like there's only so much you will ever know. The rest you get to kind of come up with. People have said in that, like, there was a guy who I'm now like 110% convinced was just masquerading as a fun dog like not developer, but like, sorry, somewhat related to them. And I believe he was saying that Fun Dog, or not Fun Dog, but like Rat King is partially a fungus. Like there's a giant bag on the back of on Rat King, right? I always figured that was loot, but he does have meat hooks on it, so it's hard to say. At the very least, we can tell a few things, right? That Rat King is a medium mech that's now rogue. The question being is, how does a medium mech stay alive? Like, is it getting fuel from us? Is it making its own fuel, so on and so forth? and the fungus being something that could maybe help create its fuel source, right? It kind of digesting things for it to produce energy, but it's hard to say. Michael, that's exactly the point, right? If you go too deep into the 40k sauce, it's unapproachable to anyone else, right? Like it requires so much buy-in for someone to actually understand what the hell is going on in 40k, and it does make it cool, right? When you can find someone in the wild who can actually understand what you're talking about and you guys are on the same wavelength, that's really cool. But it does make it kind of unapproachable. And like, for example too, right? I feel like a lot of people wouldn't even try in the first place if it wasn't for like how big 40k is in the Grimdark space. Or kind of like, this dystopian sort of dark fantasy or like, sci-fi setting. Let's be old. All right, where are you? Let's go over to the pack mule. And let's try out the scar. And I will say too, right, like, keep in mind that the previous patch, the scar was only 200 damage. So like, and it didn't feel good, but it being 300 damage now, I think it's in a great spot. It does not have a silencer, that's the big downside, but like, you get a lot of damage in a small package without the silencer. Thanks a lot, appreciate it. Yeah, RC, and you can definitely view that as kind of the Primaris change and a lot of things like that. And like, you can view the new version of D&D and D&D 5e, for example, in that regard too, where it's becoming more mainstream. But like, once again, the reason why I feel like D&D can get away with it though so easily, and why if people are like, hey Steam. For the D&D purists, all I'll say is this, right? Nothing is stopping you from running your purest version of D&D, right? There's nothing wrong with that. So you can have a very general setting, right? Where like, naturally the rule book itself might have rules for a rat person and say some metal Goliath and then a human and so on and so forth, right? That doesn't mean you need to have all of them in your game or allow all of them in your game. If it's not totally correct, that's perfectly fine. Just don't have that race be allowed in your game. Well, 40k is a bit different, right? Where like 40k, you're kind of, in a way, you're not like, the people prescribed to your game way before that change, and you're now kind of in a way making them prescribe to this new one. At the same time, when it comes to lore though, right? I mean, until it's actually in the game itself, it's pretty fine. Like, until it gets to the point where like it's basically thrown in front of you, you can kind of just ignore it. I mean, I would basically say dark fantasy is grimdark. I was saying high fantasy in the regard. So my general definition of high fantasy, right, is something that kind of is very ungrounded, is very like, you have the magic and chaos whole aspect of 40k, which I believe kind of takes it into this fantasy realm. If you've ever seen, for example, Battlestar Galactica, that does a good job, for example, of being a space opera like 40k is, but being grounded, right? It takes liberties in certain things like warp travel that have to exist for the setting, or, you know, jumping. But for the most part, like, right, a lot of it functions. I mean, to be fair, they're flying ships. Like, I mean, it does a good job about that too, though. BSG does a very good job of being grounded space opera, while 40K does space opera in a very high fantasy setting, right? And this is, once again, this is very generalized, right? So this is not specific at all. And naturally, definitions can change from person to person, but that's my view on it, right? And high fantasy basically being like magic and things that aren't trying to be like realistic or grounded or just kind of tame. You're bringing in a lot of like, you know, kind of tropes of like fantasy, like magic and so on and so forth. Mystical creatures. Hey, Yer, how's it going? And like in a way too, there's always this, I guess, dispensity too, Ethan, where Grimdark is sci-fi, and so like in a way Grimdark is just sci-fi dark fantasy. Like you kind of just like, that's why I kind of say that, at least in my mind, they're kind of equivalent.
Worth the extra way.
Like if you basically took a Grimdark setting and made it medieval, along with probably having magic and stuff like that, yeah, dark fantasy. Oh, for sure, Wave. Like that's the. If I ever talk to the developers, which I never have, I've talked to their CM, and that's literally it. No, I don't work at Fundog. No, I don't. I have no idea what they are planning. I have no idea about their actual lore. there's a reason why there's a massive speculation disclaimer in that video. But no, like if I ever talk to them, right, that'd be kind of like the one thing I feel like I would want to get across personally is that there's a lot of beauty in melding genres. And I think we already have plenty of extraction shooters that are just kind of extraction shooters, and I think there's a lot of space to explore, right? Naturally, it's their game and they can do whatever the fuck they want with it, but I think there's just money on the table. Oh god. Alright, please be EODs. Please be EODs. Please be EODs. I'm scared. No, don't you summon the dog. I'm not getting shot yet, I'm scared. It could just be an Orgamac though. I don't hear bad music yet. What are you? It's taking a very long time for me to... Is it you? No. It's gotta be this person over here then, right? Oh yeah, we're good. We're good. This is EOD. I guess they're spawning really far away now. That's interesting. Oh, Ethan, it's been it's been confirmed in Q&As that we're on West Coast. It's Lost Angel, like, so, oh god. So one thing to keep in mind, right, is that it kind of, it definitely feels like they are alluding to or saying that the entire North America continent, at least the United States and greater areas, were one mega city called Los Angeles. And I'm not sure if that's the case or just me misinterpreting it, but like at the very least Los Angeles is the Los Angeles West Coast area. So like we're not necessarily in LA, but we're in like the West Coast of the US. I mean, hunter killer means like they're like the exact definition's probably a bit vague, but like hunter killers kind of are like, you know, they're hunting you to kill you kind of vibe, in the sense of like they are task-based assassins. And they're like, hunter killer gives me the vibe a lot more than just assassins, for example. They are kind of like assassins are like clandestine. Hunter killers have a degree of just like brute forcedness to them. And we might see like more assassins in the future too, right? Like there are assassins, not necessarily in the game, but like alluded to. That being, so there's a quest that has you kill some European assassins on Scrapyard. However, they're not fully functional yet. They're kind of just placeholdered, but the quest itself says they're going to be cloaked. No, they don't. So the only 4 HKs we have right now are the EODs, which are most common, the Grabber, an Orga mech, or a medium mech for Europa. Hey, Jacob. And I'm sure that will change in the future too, but like we'll probably have a more like, well, I hope we have a more like interesting kind of HK system eventually. Yeah, Michael, I think just mainly because like, yeah, the HK system right now is just doesn't really exist. It's just a very simple system to spawn different entities. Like I do think it needs some progressions, right? Like, you know, say for example, they send some EOD HKs to deal with you. If you deal with those, they should probably escalate. Glad to hear it, Daniel. Yeah, essentially, they are essentially there to deal with you for doing something too aggressive. Like, if you kill too many units, right, HAs get sent out. If you loot too many items, or loot specific items mainly, they get sent after you. It's essentially a way of, like, incentivizing you, or trying to incentivize you, or I guess really punishing you, really. For being too greedy or too belligerent. Yeah. Technically speaking, if you stay too long on a map, it doesn't, like, there isn't just a time factor on it. It has to be something else. Like, if you go stand somewhere and go AFK for an hour, you won't get HKs. But from naturally playing and engaging in a map, you're more likely to get HKs from looting or killing things. And like, there are certain items that on certain maps that will trigger you to have HKs, right? For example, the pictures on Ashen Mesa, it's like 3 or 4 pictures, and that will trigger HKs. On Mausoleum, it's data caches. So like, for the most part, every single map has an item where if you pick too much of it up, it will send HKs after you. Yes, but it's been a very long time. I believe the only space where it can spawn is in the hangar of Ashen Mesa. So, the hangar of Ashen Mesa, the hangar inside of the destroyed Titan on Ashen Mesa, it's a weird spawn point for Europa. It can technically spawn any unit in the European pool. So like, you can have a medium mech spawn there, you can have turrets spawn there. But a few of the units in the game right now that are kind of placeholders, the Egghead and the Signaler, both can spawn there in a very, like, kind of mechanical capacity. That being, you won't see the unit function really, but they might have some functionality that might indicate what they do in the future. For example, the Egghead deploys turrets. Let's do some Gunhead. Let's go back to a silence again, because I'm not playing with having much HP here. Yeah, that's kind of the whole like weird thing, why, in a sense of like the fact that they're omniscient kind of sucks from lots of perspectives, and one aspect being like, how the hell do they know where exactly we are? And I feel like that's mainly just because they're just hopefully in progress. I don't mind them having a, like, my biggest thing is this, right? I don't mind them having approximate knowledge of where you are, but them having specific knowledge of where you are is kind of, I think, over the line. And there's certain clever ways of doing it, but it requires work to doing it. UE5 told them, yeah. Yeah, like, they're tactical cameras too. Tactical cameras are weird because, like, if we have the tech, it feels like they have to have the tech, and which means they can see through walls, which kind of begs the question of, so they always know we're there, but they just don't care until they care? Ruh-roh.
I am the conduit. The human is the hand.
Yeah, I mean, Michael, at the same time too, though, do keep in mind, if you pick up 4 pictures, 4 mundane pictures, you summon HKs. So yes and no. That could be a way of explaining it, but why pictures? Yeah, and like on that note, right? Like if you want to like have it like the drones see you, right? The drones are tracking you now. On that note, that's why it should be specific or like, you know, approximate knowledge, right? Not the specific knowledge. So like the way I generally see it, right? Hold on, let me soundtrack time. I will say, it's gonna probably show up darker on stream. I actually have added a filter to my stream that lightens the scene a little bit. It's not dark on my stream, but apparently transferring it to my other PC and then streaming it makes it darker, so I'd add some extra exposure to it. But it is dark. But no, going back to the HKs, right? The way I see it, right, is I can't remember what game it was, right, but essentially the way they did an AI system in one game was that they had 2 systems at play. They had one AI that had specific knowledge of where you are, like it knew exactly where you are at all times, and then it had another AI who would be fed information or clues by that AI who knew where you were, right? And so the AI that was hunting you would only ever get clues on your whereabouts and not understand where exactly you are. It was an isolation? Okay. I couldn't recall if that was isolation or not, but yeah. And a system like that for the actual, like, hunter-killer AI, and I guess grabber AI too, kind of works out too, where it gets fed information on where you are by actions you do, but doesn't generally know exactly where you are until it actually sees you. And so things you do might attract its attention or notify, you know, the specific AI, like shooting or killing things or maybe even looting, but... And actually too, there's, you know, that's also a way you can differentiate certain types of loot also, where, hey, maybe you pick up this laptop and that actually does have a tracker in it. But like the laptop is super valuable for that reason. And so it makes it like a very high risk, high reward sort of loot item, right? Oh no, the game might never get that smart, right? But like, even just providing like a semblance of that, or the illusion of that, is very helpful in regards to making HKs feel better. And like the simplest thing too, right, would be just be removing the HK specific knowledge of where you are. Like there's so many different ways of doing it, but just like them knowing exactly where you are at all times without, it feels weird. I believe the canon is that they're smut pictures, right? Yeah, it's definitely Nightcall. There's definitely a lot of weird aspects with HKs right now, in the sense of sometimes it can feel a bit random on what summons them, and inconsistent too, right? So for example, one time I'll bring in like a 36M and like shoot it once, and that will summon an HK. Which I mean, it doesn't sound absurd, right? Because like naturally, a 36M is a 20mm. That should cause attention. But like the next raid, you'll go and do the exact same thing with the 36M and not happen. It's just a bit weird sometimes. It's inconsistent. Though I will say the items are very consistent though. Yeah, and on that note, Jacob too, right? One of the aspects where it makes HKs really painful, they currently like respawn almost instantly when you kill them. So it feels very artificial, right? It doesn't feel like you're being hunted, it feels like you're being punished. And I will say that's a very important note to point to. Like, the game is supposed to be Grimdark and hard, but there's a difference between hard and punishing the player. Typically speaking, if you can offer a reward over a punishment, the reward is better. I am personally of the opinion that you should still have punishments, but like they're used very sparingly, right? But like it's very well documented at this point, right, that positive reinforcement is way better than negative. And like, Michael, in a way that it'll almost be kind of like the system, right, we're describing, but like, as opposed to just an artificial AI director doing it, it's like a grounded unit, like a drone doing it, right? So for example, like when you get HKs, right, a drone gets deployed and starts looking for you. And if it finds you, it might give the HKs actual knowledge of where you are. Yeah, there's definitely Nightcall. I've made this point on map critiques quite a bit. The maps right now and they're like the loot system right now does not give you good rewards for like, there's not really risk versus reward right now in the game. At no point does it feel like I'm making a choice to say I am taking a risk going here to do this quest or to do this, you know, to gather these components or containers, and I might die, but it's worth the risk. It's not a labs, it's not a you know, dorms, or it's not like a lot of areas, right? There's not really a lot of nuance to locations and their risk. There's a lot of stick in this game. I know, 100%. I will wholeheartedly agree with you on that. There's a lot of stick in this game currently. And like, I think them having to change water is coming to terms that maybe it was too much stick. Because the water system's kind of the premise of that, right? Because water was before literally punishing you for not playing. You can argue of how harsh it was, right? But like at its core, it was punishing you for not playing the game. Oh, for sure. There's definitely, and I will say too, right? As long as they get it out eventually, it'll be fine. It might wane. Like Subnautica 2, right? Or Subnautica, right? Had this long, very period, right? Where it was kind of meandering for a very long time. And it didn't really truly blow up until it launched. And like, that's always my biggest reservation with early access, is that if the developers become too enamored with developing for early access and not developing for a complete game, you can kind of lose the sauce. Yeah, blood for sure. Yeah, it's kind of like Tarkov's Sin, right? Tarkov's Sin was always trying to develop for early access and the people currently playing early access and not trying to make a game. In a way too, right? Baldur's Gate did that at a great capacity also. So Baldur's Gate 3, for example, they were in early access. Like, they put out early access, but it was just Act 1, and they might have hotfixed it a few times for really big bugs, but at a certain point, right, the early access was that period, and like, you weren't getting any more content in that early access, right? They were busy developing the entire game. It wasn't... The early access for them wasn't really necessarily trying to give you the complete dev cycle in front of you, but more of them giving you Act 1, letting you play around, and them getting valuable feedback on how they're approaching the game, right? And if they need to amend things for Act 2 and Act 3 and then fix Act 1, perhaps. I do not know enough to talk about polygons in regards to their impact and like how much LOD is going on and the performance impacts of that. Like, it's very hard to look at that level of technicality, at least for me, and like give an actual thought on it, right? For those unaware, the context is this, right? So essentially people have been data mining the game at this point and like ripping assets out of the game through third-party tools. And essentially they have uncovered that a lot of the models, the base models for the game, have a very high count of polygons. And essentially meaning that the level of detail they have is excessive and it's a detriment on performance. And there's LOD levels, and for those familiar with LOD's level of detail, it essentially means the farther you get away, the less polygons you will see. And sometimes that's automated, sometimes it's manual, right? Sometimes, you know, sometimes a graphic designer or, you know, an artist will make, say, 5, 6, 7, 8 models of a certain model, and each one of those models will be for a certain LOD. So like, say for example, right in front of you, you might see all 2 million polygons. say for example 10 meters in front of you, you might only see half of that, and then you know it might doing half and half and half and half. So like when it's 100 meters away, you might only see a fraction of those polygons. And the question being is in the sense of how well kind of is Nanite, or I guess them doing their LOD to the point where how many of those 2 million polygons are we seeing in game? And like it's getting to that level of technicality too, right? Where I am too ignorant to really speak on it. I know the detail about like the controversy. I do not know the specifics about it, right? In regards to like, is this warranted? Is this just looking at it? Is this really just is this more of someone ripping off an asset from a game that's not supposed to be ripped off in such a way, and them not getting the full story from that? Yeah, like that's at this point, like Blood, exactly. That's getting to the point where I am personally just too ignorant on it to know. So Schizo, yeah, on that note, so like they mentioned that before, and I thought it was actually just LOD, but what they said in a Q&A, it's actually apparently their tick system. So they're actually farther away, they're reducing the amount of ticks, or basically the units farther away are operating on a slower cycles than things closer, right? So say for example, things next to you will update every second, like so once every 60, like so 60 hertz, but things farther away will slow that down, right? So essentially, you know, a unit right next to you might, you know, update every once a second, but units far away might only update every 8 seconds, which is why it gets jumpy, right? Naturally, that's hyperbole, like it's not 8 seconds, but you know what I mean. No, I 100% agree with you. And I think they've heard that complaint a lot too. I've mentioned it a lot on stream how I do not like it either. I would rather lower my graphical fidelity than see animations like that. I tried playing the D&D MMO one time, and like they have that natively as a setting in their game that's pretty low, and I hate it so much. I will crank my settings down so much to make sure that I can actually see things at full frames, or at least like if they have to have the cycles to 30 or however much they need to lower to, that's perfectly fine, but like it needs to be smooth. I feel like there are plenty of games that don't have to do that, and so whatever you need to do. Especially considering when your game's supposed to be like this kind of visual game. Yeah, it rubs me the wrong way to see things moving at half, like quarter frames, half frames, like just looks so wrong. And the fact is too, like it's also just like removed from like any settings you can choose. Hey Cronin, thanks, appreciate it. All right. We have meds, we have quests. We are good. Yeah, there's definitely that aspect, right? But like, for me personally, it's an important enough issue. It's a pet peeve of mine personally that like I would never allow a game to go out with that, right? Naturally, different strokes for different folks, right? Like my personal pet peeve in regards to animations not running at lower frames is not going to be like not everyone's going to care about that. But personally for me, in a game that's supposed to be visually like good looking, I would absolutely try everything possible, and I would try and find a workaround to make that work. Because, like, it just looks so wrong to me, man, having animations be jumpy like that and not smooth. Yeah, it reminds me too, Michael, for example, of just like, yeah, how long you've been playing in a certain setting, or like what your experience is. It reminds me when I went over to a friend's house when I was younger, right? He was playing a game on his computer, and like, he was playing some shooter, right? But he wasn't, I would say, a big gamer, but like he did enjoy like FPS games like that. But I don't think he ever had a good rig. And so he never really experienced games at high FPS. And so like he was playing this like FPS, right? And it was like 10 to 15 frames a second. It was, from me, like playing games at like actual like 30 FPS or above, going to his house and watching him play 15 FPSs was awful. But like that was his norm, right? And so he got used to that, and he was pretty good at it too, right? Just him never experiencing or having the smoother experience, right, made him just accustomed to playing 15 FPS. By the way, this is why the 308's so good. 308 is like one of the few rounds that will consistently one-shot headshot now. And that's fair. That's literally the purpose of frame caps. Right? Hell, some games even require it too. Like for example, I love Mad Max. The original game, though, is so old, and apparently its clocks were tied to the frame rate. So you have to like install a mod and or like use NVIDIA to artificially cap your frame rate in Mad Max because of that. Sorry, not Mad Max. Sorry, Max Payne. I misspoke. Max Payne. But Max Payne, there we go. Max Payne requires that, right? The original Max Payne. You have to frame cap yourself, or like there is literally a part where, because the game runs differently at higher frames, like the entire like script and cinematic bugs out, and you basically get soft locked. Yeah, on that note though too, right? Now Dead Space 1, the original Dead Space 1. Whoa, 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 whoa. Fucking Soldier Factory, my god. So Dead Space 1, it didn't have a frame cap, but like it's a game that had VSync on natively, and VSync is essentially a frame cap, and kind of it's a frame cap, but it's a frame cap for not the reasons of making people who have motion sickness not. It's more for screen tearing. But VSync, for example, created insane amounts like actual like a second to 2 seconds of input delay on your mouse in Dead Space 1, and it felt awful. And I'm not sure if it was a setting you could turn off natively too. I think you had to like go into an INI file or like install a mod to actually turn off VSync in Dead Space 1 back in the day, because it was god awful. Also, I'm looking for the mech part, I think. Is it over here? Let's go over here. Too scary? I love Dead Space. I actually, weirdly enough, I don't think... Maybe like my first playthrough was too scary, but like I don't find Dead Space Dead Space is more atmospheric than scary to me. Like, it's survival horror, right? But it leans a bit more into the horror than like Resident Evil does.
Hey, watch my back. I'm sifting.
Like, Alien Isolation, I would say, is definite horror, right? But Dead Space 1 never really, I think my first playthrough Dead Space 1 was scary, but like anything after that just wasn't that scary anymore. Remake was great though, by the way. I love the remake. It's so sad it didn't sell enough for EA to make 2. I would say though, Nightcall, it does get repetitive, but it doesn't overstay its welcome, right? I can understand why if you tried a new game plus immediately, it would definitely feel, I would think too, a bit too repetitive, but like the pacing of Dead Space 1 I do think is pretty good. Yeah, like once you kind of understand how the game is being done, yeah, it gets predictable for sure. I will say though, like on that note, if you ever let your guard down, the game can like surprise you at times, despite you knowing how it works. That it will try and ambush you and it will try to like actually have things hide. And I will say too, one big aspect also, right? You like, there's a real problem, right, in regards to making games that are also, hold on. So I have repair the mech, but I'm dropping this part off to repair the mech, and now I'm immediately setting the mech on fire. Victory. There's definitely a big issue in regards, it's not an easy issue, I would think too, right? Gamers, like people who play games, have gotten very good at playing games. And the problem is in some capacity, the people who aren't those gamers, who still enjoy games casually, they have vastly different experiences when playing games. Not even that, like, I wouldn't say, like, that's definitely an extreme too, right, Nightcall? But you still have people who are very avid gamers who are very good at playing games, right? Not to tout my own horn, I've been playing games since I was, like, literally, like, 7 or 8, right? I started with Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six 1, and I have a stupid amount of time playing games. And actually, I do enjoy playing lots of different games, right? But, like, for the most part, it's why I enjoy early access games or indie games so much, is because I've played so many games now where the more mainstream ones will typically have not all that much of a novel experience for me. So like seeing how, you know, indie developers or like early access developers will do things is refreshing, right? Because it's not something I've experienced before. And like naturally, right, there's different amounts of people too, right? But there's plenty of, if you get caught up for making games for, like, you know, the crowd of people who already massively play games, you kind of constrain yourself and also get yourself lost a bit. But also, like, there's this hard issue, right, of how do you make a game that, you know, is challenging to both, and you do that through difficulty, but at the same time there's plenty of gamers too who don't want to feel punished for, like, it's hard. There's definitely some like hypocrisy going on too, right? Where like gamers want to have an experience that's hard for them, but they also don't want to have that experience be called harder mode. They want that to be the normal. Oh, definitely. There's definitely an aspect too, right? Of like, yeah, the psychosis going on in Dead Space 1. Outside of like the actual body horror in Dead Space series, right? The whole concept of that's very interesting, right? Of like, you know, almost being like a mental siren driving people insane. But like not in a quick way. Like the marker's very insidious in how it does it, right? It's a very slow burn, sort of like creeping into your head. I will say though, one of the biggest aspects too, right, is I was hoping they were redoing Dead Space. Like redo Dead Space 1, redo Dead Space 2, and then perhaps rewrite or redo 3. I'm not sure if I love the whole, like, maybe it was always going to be the case. I don't know. I would love to talk to the writers of Dead Space and like to get their ideas, but like I'm kind of curious if like the idea that the necromorphs or the markers, right, were always like these giant kind of all-consuming entities. Spoiler alert. Essentially at the Dead Space 3, right, was kind of you learning that in some capacity the necromorph slash kind of meat conglomerates were kind of these all-consuming beings that kind of devoured worlds as opposed to just like, you know, just were a disease. 3 is the like epitome of a mid game, right? 3 is like a perfect like 6-7 out of 10 game that just has a mess story. And it wasn't really survival horror anymore. It was just kind of an action shooter. It was fine in that regard, but it definitely strayed away from the path of like 1 and 2. And like, so King, that kind of ties in too, also a bit to 40K, because it kind of it has that similar sort of vibe to it in regards to like 1 and 2 gave you the survival horror vibe, right? And you kind of establish that audience of who likes your game, and then 3 does something so removed from that, where you are just kind of. And because it's not optional too, right? You're kind of just making the experience sort of... You're essentially pissing off your previous audience, right? Pissing off's a strong word, but like it is in a way kind of spitting on your previous clientele. Yeah, even worse, the biggest thing about 3 too is the story's a cliffhanger. It does not conclude in of itself. Like, say what you want about 1 and 2. They do leave it open, but like they are conclusive stories, right? But like 3 does leave you on a cliffhanger. The lore went very weird very quickly, 100% with 3. It kind of felt like there's always the issues, right? Where if you're sometimes there needs to be resets because you can easily get trapped in the cycle of having to make the next antagonist bigger and badder, right? And you almost get in an arms race with yourself. I mean, that's fair, Michael. I would say though, like, you aren't gonna get much fanfic of your setting when you piss off the audience who enjoyed your game beforehand. You'll naturally get people who are okay with it, but like, there was a lot of like Dead Space fans who were not happy with 3 when it came out. Mainly for gameplay reasons, right, where it was not survival horror anymore too, but like story reasons also. But no, like there's always the trap of getting caught into an arms race with yourself, of having to make just every entity be bigger and badder. Though I will say, on Dead Space's note though, I do hope they're willing to explore not necessarily like pure body horror, but more body horror with Yoruska. Like, we don't need the Thing, but it would be nice to see a bit more of like units like the Grabber, right? Yeah, I mean, Nikon, on that point, right? It was definitely during EA's darker days. You can still say EA's in their darker days now too, right? Where like EA was like, there's always a trap, right, too, where you have something successful, and like the viewpoint from the business is how do we make it more successful, right? And their general answer is to make it more mainstream, right? That's like that is the most fucking masters in business answer ever, right? How do you make something more successful? You widen the audience. How do you widen the audience in games? You make it more approachable for more players. It's like the whole capitalist, like, you need to have constant growth, otherwise you're failing. All right. So big thing about this variant of the map. So the white version of this map will very often have 2 squads of Euruskans patrolling around. And the way Euruskan officers work currently is they're usually always, almost always in the very front of their squads leading it. So unless you want to eat a grenade launcher, check to make sure if you have 2 male officers in this area, and then kill them both before you actually try to do anything. Otherwise, when you get into a fight, you might eat a grenade launcher and die. Michael, so like your point about Disney though, I will actually kind of, going back to a very previous conversation about Neil Blomkamp. I'm saying that wrong, but forgive me. In regards to him not making District 10 yet, sometimes you just have to let things rest and let them cook for a while, right? Trying to force things to come out sometimes can be pretty, it doesn't always work the way you want it to, right? And Disney feels to be just making things for making things' sake. And that's their biggest sin, and they seem to be okay with that, which I guess is their prerogative, right? Because they own the IPs. But the whole thing with Marvel, right, is they gave no time for things to breathe after the first kind of culmination, right? They immediately dived back in. Like, things have to breathe. There's always exhaustion, right? People can only consume a certain type of media for so long. So, just like, it has to breathe. The only problem, though, it doesn't really work very well with how businesses work right now. I think for the most part, like in real life scenarios, right? It depends. Some do, some don't. Considering, I mean, we see plenty of civilians around too who are being restrained. So like, and they're not killing them on the spot, right? So naturally, like, they care enough not to kill them on sight. Exactly, right? It's all gas, no brake. And there's plenty of people willing to pump short term to lose long term because short term makes them look good. And it's also just the whole segment too of like, you know, business majors. Or, and I wouldn't even say business majors, but masters in business, like going to master school to get your business degree definitely has that whole kind of feeling of like, oh yeah, I'm gonna juice the profits by short-term revenue to make myself look good. No, like, hold on. Give me 1 second here. 1 second. 1 second. I am alt tab. Give me 1 second. Hold on. Where is it? Come on. Is it really this far down? My God. There's a lot of... I'm surprised the channel is still open. Oh my God. There is so many freaking questions in this Q&A thread. Holy shit. Hold on, there we go. Okay, found it. It took me way too long. But no. Yes, no, I definitely understand. What's the deal with the vast sizes of props in the game? And their Q&A thread. Like, and this is a map too, right, where it's on, right? There is... I have questions. I have so many questions. What's with the size? I would be genuinely surprised if you loaded up these maps in Unreal how many of the props had the exact same scaling across the maps. What the hell are you doing over here? Like... Sir? There are... Did you walk over here just to get stuck? Like, there so many of the maps right now have props that are just like wild swings of scale. And I feel like it would personally drive me insane. Like, I would absolutely, it would definitely be something where I would like store the values of scale somewhere for me to reference, right? For people who aren't aware what the fuck we're talking about right now, the props in the game, like the objects, right? Like, for example, the destroyed tanks, depending on what map you go onto, and even in different areas of that map, the same prop, the same item or object will be different sizes. So for example, one of the big things you can see, for example, on Frozen Swamp, is in the destroyed Titan, you will see a Type 10 main battle tank from Japan, and it's like half the size of a tank 30 meters away. That's the same type of tank. So it's real confusing. And it also just kind of makes the whole scale thing quirky, right? Like it's hard to get a perspective on how small or big you are when the scale of things feels so everywhere. And so the question, right, is it on purpose or is it an accident? Because if it's an accident, right, it kind of means all of these maps need an overhaul in that regard, because all of the maps have props on the wrong area. Well, keep in mind too, right, like, look at a human next to a tank, like an M1 Abrams or any really like conventional battle tank, right? keep in mind that one of the tank treads will be about to a little bit wider than you, approximately, just for scale references, right? And like, you will see how small some of these tanks are. Maybe it's just weird, right? Like, if the lore is that like maybe they made small mini drone tanks, sure, I can get on board with that. But for them to have no visual differences from the other tank, like if for example the Type 10 main metal tank, right? If they had the smaller version with antennas or some extra sensor arrays for like, you know, getting in like signals, it would work. I would not make that lore either if that was me. But no, I just... I'm the basic thing I'll say is this. I'm okay with the lore being whatever it is, as long as it's consistent, right? Like, if for some reason, like, what lore would cause two types of the same tank to be vastly different sizes with no modifications? I mean, and I will say too, it's actually caused some confusion also, right? So on my Titan video, some of you, the people who watch my stream a lot are going to be tired of this, but I'll just make it quick. The silhouette of guns on the Titans look like they're much bigger than they are, but because of the scaling thing, they're actually pretty small. So those giant guns that look like they're 12 to 16 inches from dreadnoughts of, you know, World War I and II, those are just like 5 to 8 inch guns at most. They are that small. The silhouette does not like... The silhouette looks wrong. It just confuses you. We'll just do one quest on Scorched Enclave, that's fine. I don't actually mind the giant mechs with oversized human rifles. Like, I can, as long as they're the same size across the board, I respect that, right? I have no problem with that. Would I prefer personally a different gun, their main gun? Sure, but like, I'm okay with that because it's consistent, right? Well, not even consistent though. Medium mechs have props that are wrong scale too, but. I'm okay with medium mechs. I'm okay with like literally every unit in the game. The props are the issue. Actually, I would say the tank units are also wrongly sized too. If we go over to here, hold on. No tanks today on Scorched Enclave? Yeah, that's an animation thing though too, I will say, with the AA-12. The animations right now are just weird with guns. We're just really underbaked. But like, for example, this T-90 here. Like, this, I'm like 99%, hold on, let me get to the next of the treads. Don't you run me over. Yeah, like, it's probably like 75% perhaps. It's too small. Like, the tanks here are also just, yeah. I feel like someone with T-90 experience, yeah, like they're just too small. I will say, however, on that note, they are too small, but the EXO video does actually show that they just have one person inside of it. So, like, they are like T-72s, but they've been retrofitted to be like, I guess, one crew operable. So essentially in the cinematic, right, an EXO peels open the top of the tank and it's just one guy inside. So if that's canonical, right, that these tanks have been changed to have only one guy inside, sure. But like, that kind of goes into my whole point with guns, right? where having things that pay homage to IRL things is nice, but you need to make them different to make it not like Elysium guns. Where, oh hey, that's an AK, but it's very clearly sci-fi AK. Oh hey, that's clearly like a T-90, T-72 Russian-inspired tank, but it's definitely been changed. Yeah, which is why, like, it's very important to add some elements that clearly says this is not a normal tank, but is heavily inspired by the T-72, T-90 series, right? Same thing with guns, right? Like, it's perfectly fine to have M4s, AKs, all conventional guns in your game, but give them some flair to basically let you say, like, this is like, you know, looks like a SCAR, looks like an M4, looks like an AK, but it's very clearly been changed for the future. Blood, they're close. I would say they're not like half, they're like 75, 80%. They're definitely a little bit too small. I would need to get some scale of T-90s, probably actually, but like, I know the T-90s are fairly compact tanks, but not that compact. Pretty quiet, actually, all things considered, on Scorched Enclave today. Probably because no chopper. I will say, this map has lost a lot of its merit. It seems to have gotten more choppers now. And choppers are the worst in this patch. The absolute worst. I mean, they're scary now. They're probably one of the scariest units in the game. Not because they feel good, but because they just stick to you. Thanks, Warhammer. Appreciate it. It's definitely not the first time I've heard stuff like that, so you're perfectly fine. Like, no, like, I appreciate it regardless. Oh my god. It's a fucking clown car of cyborgs. Let it be known, a group of cyborgs now is called a clown car of cyborgs. It's not a herd, it's not a swarm, it's a clown car. Just like you call a group of crows a murder? Is it raven or crows a murder? A murder of crows, right? A clown car of cyborgs. I 100% agree with you, weapons feel placeholdery. It's just, the question is like, I agree with you, it feels like a placeholder, but I want to see that first instance of like it very clearly being a placeholder for me to like fully sign on, right? Group noun for exos? It's so rare to see exos in a group though, but I have seen it happen before, like very rarely, but it's a great question. What would be the group? What would be the group name of exos? A stomp of exos? Maybe. They are very stompy. Let's just do that. Hold on, let's go over to Gunhead. Let's pick up the rack too. Character. I'll do 200 rounds of this. We'll try to not be belligerent. We probably want to spawn ruins for this. We need to talk to Eurasia. How would you like lots of wine? There we go. I hope that's not the case, little Papa. I genuinely hope that's not the case. From the deepest, sincerest parts of my heart, I really hope that's not the case. I feel like even if you can still keep the stock silhouette of the G36, but like update the visual aspects of the gun to make it look more appropriate to the setting.
They won't need us. But not today.
Welcome to the no one can see part of the stream. But little Papa, like, if that is the case, they are hard locked in the guns they have now. I will be a bit disappointed. It feels very weird to have such stylized units and settings to have your line in the sand of groundedness be the guns. It's like this is where you draw the line. This feels weird. Nice and peaceful. It'd be interesting if Gunhead, like, if there was much more, like... It's interesting, I mean, Gunhead probably runs hot, but, like... I wonder if there's certain things that where Gunhead should be actually stealthier than regular people from. Like, naturally he makes tons of sound, but, like, maybe because he's, like, cold metal. Maybe he runs cold. He's not, like, as viable to, like, EM, perhaps. Yes. He's a robot with a program, but like it's been built up for so long it's basically like an AI. But it's not, it was never designed to be an AI. It's essentially just a very thorough program. Moo. I mean, if their whole point, Lil Papa, is like trying to pay homage to like the anime from like the 90s in regards to like those guys that would have like the Grimdark suits but fired MG42s. Okay. I mean, I feel like you can pay homage to anime without having to copy everything from anime. I don't know. I feel like they're leaving a lot on the table, personally. Okay, here's the thing. To abide by those animes, right, that have those guns of historical past in this future, that is one thing. But to have customization on top of that just feel it. Perhaps they were trying to cater to multiple crowds, but it just felt forced. Like I would say collectively guns feel awful. In different standpoints, right? If that's the case, if they were trying to stick true to anime roots of like having like MG42s and MP40s in their game, like just pick that and stick to it then. Like then having customization for your guns feels like this weird half measure that just feels awful. Naturally, all my opinions, right? Just this is me, not everyone. And like that's the thing I will say about like, for example, Marauders. Marauders did that, right? They have like their whole setting is having these MG, like basically World War II guns, right? Naturally changed here a bit here and there, but they're essentially World War II guns. But it doesn't like try and like do some half measure by like adding customization to those guns at all, right?
All right, well, I have bad news. I did not bring a flashlight. So if it's dark for me, it's dark for you. No, lol, that's essentially how I see it too. My counterpoint being for developers, who are definitely not watching this, that it's an important aspect of a game. No. I mean, I think the premise, right, Bean Lord, is that despite the fact that, like, there's been mass nuclear war, the factories are still able to churn out... No. That's more complicated. The factories are able to churn out endless stuff. But, like, even then, why would the factions, like, produce 5 bazillion different modifications for guns like that? Like, why have 20 different, like, foregrips and flashlights and optics of different, basically similar use cases? You can indeed. But if you miss, it gets painful. I don't want to be standing still for that long. But no, yeah. Against... These guys take 2. And then scramblers and crawlers get 1 shot. We have no idea, Master. From their last Q&A, they said we're about, from the Q&A itself, they said 6 months. We're about a month after that Q&A, so we're about 5 months away from a very, very early iteration of Endgame. So not like full Endgame, but like the testing bed for the Endgame. Hurry up. And like literally, they've been pretty cryptic in Q&As recently, so just no idea what's coming. Absolutely no idea. The only thing we can really know for a fact is like the next content patch will probably have a new map. That's it. That's all we could possibly say. Hey Zane, how's it going? And the core premise is right, like with Matt Masta, in the sense of their videos on their channel give off one feeling, the game gives off another, and their Q&As give off another, and so it's not necessarily very clear what the intended and kind of feeling of the game is supposed to be. And I guess we'll find out. I frankly could not say. Alright, that was the rack. We actually get the quest done? We did. Thanks, appreciate it. It was a lot of work. And actually, a lot of it's just me learning stuff too, so like, getting things in place so I can do it quicker and faster and better. Definitely the big aspect was doing the VO for an hour. Like, that was getting that together. And it was not as perfect as I wanted it to be, but like, it needed to get it done eventually. Right, Gunhead. Stairway. Let's start from the top this time. That's very fair. I mean, that's why, Michael, I will say, like, you hear people say, like, at the gym or like on their other screen or when they're doing something else. It's literally something you listen to, right? It was mentioned pretty heavily early on in that midsection, and then it just like goes away immediately. Like after Australia, it just never gets mentioned again, I'm pretty sure.
As you
but it's mentioned pretty heavily like for the first part, and it's mentioned pretty heavily until we reach Australia, and then after that, just never mentioned again. Because essentially, right, like the only faction that would probably have access to space is Eurasia. That's the only faction we know of that actually should have stuff in space, but... So far, the comments I've read, like, everything I've expected to get critiqued so far has been critiqued. The only thing that's missing, though, is I haven't heard anyone mention my use of though. Because I do use it quite a bit, and I thought it was excessive, right? And I did actually cut out a few of them, because that's really easy for me to cut out, but like, I haven't seen that in the comments yet, the whole, you use though way too much.
Protocol 726.
Someone commented on the emphasis I place on words, and that's perfectly fair. I definitely heard that too. It's just that, like, recording the VO is definitely the hardest part of a video for me right now, and just trying to be consistent with my voice, it's fucking hard, man. It's so hard. Respect to voice actors. So, Beanlord, it's less about the... In a perfect world, if we could have full-fledged customization at no cost, I'm on board. I have no problem with it. The problem with though is that basically, like, it's a cost, right? Having customization done well has a real cost, in the sense of it requires, you know, the models for it, it requires balancing for it, it requires it to be implemented in such a way where it works and doesn't bug out. Like, having to align all of these different optics with the current camera systems, I'm sure is a pain in the ass. So it can't be taken in a vacuum. The customization they currently have has a real cost to it. And so when they're bearing that cost, it is at the expense of something else they could have worked on. And that's essentially how I view it, right? Is I would much rather have other things than a full-fledged customization system, especially when it could probably only ever get half-baked. And keep in mind, like, Tarkov has been doing it for 10 years. And like, if you go back to very early Tarkov, it wasn't that deep. It took them so long to get to the point they are now. They've been adding, every single year they add a little bit more to it. But like, it wasn't a lot to begin with. And considering like the optics too, I don't know how they're currently doing it. Someone's mentioned they're using the default camera in UE5 for third person. And like, it gets the feeling that they're having to align a lot of the optics manually. I don't know how true that is. It just kind of just feels that way. Yeah, and like that was a selling point of Tarkov, right? For example, like the gun gooning, 100%, which is why, you know, I don't have any problems with Tarkov going that hard. But they have had 10 years to like expand upon it, do it right, add stuff, make sure things work. And like a big aspect of their patch cycles, keep in mind too, Tarkov really hasn't added all that much content in 10 years. Like, looking at the grand scheme of things, in the 10 years of content, it's been expansions to maps, new guns, and new detachments, and new quests. They really, there is so much stuff in that game they haven't explored. Like, remember, there's supposed to be like radiation and chemicals and stuff like that. There's supposed to be like an actual escape from Tarkov. All of that's been pushed aside so that they can continue their early access cycle of creating new guns and new maps and new content. Essentially, they decided halfway through early access to just be a live service game. They can't stop gun gooning. They can't. It is literally their thing now. They are known as the gun gooning game. Can't stop, won't stop. But like when you're adding customization to your game, like, I don't know. Why would I want to compete with Tarkov in that regard? Oh god, I'm sorry. Oh god, these are brawlers. I forgot these are brawlers. Very good. Brawlers are the worst. Michael, I will say, yeah, only use that percent of the time. What you should actually probably look at it though is compare it to transitions. So the amount of time I transition to a separate line, see how many times it's used there. As a consideration for, like, if you count the amount of transitions I use to, like, segue points together or lines together, I use it way too much. Like, naturally, it's going to be only a small amount of the total words, but in regards to, like, the percentage of segues or, like, transitions, it's used a lot. And I even cut out, like, probably about 5 or 6 instances that felt way too forced. Granted, editing a script that's AK words long, there's definitely a point where you just, like, are looking at it and it just blends together. There's a reason why newspapers have editors. Because when you read something 100 times, it naturally just turns in one amalgamation.
Awake at last.
This map, the central area has actually quite a few different spawns. It's highly variable, right? So sometimes you get Toothy, sometimes you get Orgamex, sometimes you get Grabber, sometimes you get all 3 of them. It's just highly kind of random. Well, Michael, and it's not necessarily, yeah, naturally you're going to use those in transitions, but like in regards to comparing it to all transitions used between sentences. So say, for example, I have like 100 transitions throughout my paper, not like periods, but transitions to separate sentences, just like separate sentences or points. In regards to that, I use it a lot. Also, hold on, dog tax. Let's do shaman. Who's a good boy?
Take a moment to appreciate the good things.
Come on. Why? Why? Dog, why? There's grates right. You could walk just right over here, dog. There are so many options for you to not pee on the carpet. All I'm saying, okay, all I'm saying is this. They should treat us like the dog, in the sense of we only ever get positive reinforcement. All right, so we need to pet and change characters. So we'll pet the dog.
Must take a moment.
Hold on.
Appreciate the good things.
Oh no. Oh no. You did this to me. It was you. Thankfully it's not, we're not stuck here. We can just go into a map real quick. How could you? You tricked me. I changed characters while in the dog petting animation, which I guess T-posed me and put me into the floor. Thankfully it's not a soft lock because I can just go into a map and be out. So, very harmless. Change it again. The dog, no. The dog's on the floor now. I changed it again. You said it would unflop. I changed it again. Were you lying to me? Now the poor dog's the ground. Dog is God. Yeah, this is ADS. The poor dog is God now. We've removed the dog from the map. Just camera things. Hopefully this fixes if we go into a map. Let's do an Ashen Mesa. Let's do an Ashen Mesa and let's start at Bunker. I imagine the camera resets or changes when you load into a map. Yeah, that dog was a freeloader. Freeloader and peeing on the carpet. Ruh-roh.
I hate the surface.
Oh, Doom guy. It's gotta be a space station, right? What could it be? Yeah, so like, a few of the rails will bug out like this if you don't put an optic on them. So like, if you basically get a rail that doesn't have a iron sight on it, and you don't put an optic on it, this will sometimes happen. Where you play Doom guy. Hey. I mean, like, you just describe generic Grim setting, Tom Hardy. I mean, this is normal, but yeah. Like, it works perfectly fine. It's just because this optic right here does not have... We don't have it, like, it's a rail without an iron sight, or without a rear iron sight, and without an optic on it. So it just kind of freaks out. It should probably still have us just aim down the actual front sights, but... Yeah, it's... And this is the thing, right? In regard to customization, it's a real cost when you have to do cameras for every single fucking type of scenario. I mean, there's plenty of instances too, right? Well, he'll just play like a badass or like a grizzled guy.
Hey, watch my back.
That's Regis.
I'm sifted.
I definitely Maskman's my favorite for sure too. He's like the great compromise of just all the characters. Shaman kind of is too, but Shaman definitely has some downsides though also. But if you want to be faster, Shaman's great. But like the main reason is like Maskman for me is like one of the least friction heavy characters in the game. As in, I don't really have to go through hoops to do what I want to do, right? Like if I want to use a gun, I can just play Maskman. If I want to use all the rigs, I can just use Maskman. Like, naturally, there's a few guns he can't use, but for the most part, he works out really, really well. Most of his lines are pretty understandable.
This gear is delicate. I need time to sort.
I haven't actually, have I ever explored over here? On night shift? I don't think I have actually. Like, I've gone over here, but I don't think I've ever actually gone under the crawler. So, like, it's important to probably keep in mind that the classes are really just archetypes, or at least they really come off as archetypes. And so, like, when Maskman dies, another scav just picks up the mantle of being Maskman. And so it's just like a normal scav under there, right? I would love to see Matthew McConaughey in like another like True Detective sort of role. I love True Detective season 1. Naturally, the other seasons are what they are, but like if you've never seen it, True Detective season 1 is amazing. It's got Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey, and they're fantastic in it. And just for extra context too, True Detective's anthology kind of show. So like each season will be self-contained, and so like when they go to a different season, it will be a different cast of characters. And I've watched the other ones. I'm not the biggest fans of them, but like 1 is so good. Okay, so yeah, nothing under here. So traditionally, when you're under here during the day shift, this is just like an endless spawn of your open soldiers. But I guess on night shift, it's nothing. Can we squeeze through here? There is co-op, Leatherneck. Yeah, there's co-op. The networking is a bit work in progress right now. Like, it works, but if you're playing with people from across the world, it can be kind of But if you're playing with people locally, it works perfectly fine. Or works fine enough. But yeah, the biggest thing is early access game, but like, yeah, it does have co-op. Was he in Reign of Fire? I know it was Christian Bale. What did he do in what did he play in Reign of Fire? It's been like probably like a decade or two since I've seen that movie. All I recall is Christian Bale and dragons. Yeah, I would need to go look it up. It's been way too long. Once again, another great example of like a solid like mid-movie, right? It's not trying to be like some prestigious flick or to like, you know, be amazing, but just a solid movie. Yeah, West Coast. This is like, I mean, not even, this is not me saying this. This is from Fun Dog's Q&As, right? They basically say we're on the West Coast. The exact area on the West Coast, we don't know. But like the West Coast of North America. Hey, maybe we're in Vancouver. Maybe we're in Los Angeles. Maybe we're somewhere else on the West Coast. The kind of premise being too, right? Los Angeles is kind of all-encompassing. Yeah, this is just normal California. Correct. It could be more into the interior, yeah. We don't have any idea where the ocean is. So it could be more into the interior. Like we have no idea that we should be on the coast, right? Or if we're on the coast at all. Granted, like naturally they said West Coast, but the exact details of West Coast are known. Like they could just mean the western half of the United States by West Coast, or just like the Western time zone West Coast. It's hard to say exactly what they mean by West Coast, other than just like, you know, the western part of, like, you know, North America. No, we definitely know it's America. Yeah, like we're at Perth. This is just Perth. That's like the only, I am not that familiar with Australian geography. That's like the only one big city on the West Coast, right? It's just Perth, and that's literally it.
Trying to carefully extract the good stuff.
I think it's just Perth. It's hard, like, it's hard to consider too. Like, you have to keep in mind that like world maps on a flat level are weird. Australia is really fucking big, and like Australia is really big, and it does not have a lot of people. That's the general plan to Sane. Now, we did cancel last week's because the networking's not great. I kind of been. The general vibe is like every other weekend or every other Friday we do community streams. The last peer-to-peer match was, or like the last like hour or two of the last stream on peer-to-peer was not great. It was literally just watching me play with bugs for like 2 hours, which is fun for like once or twice, but it's not a great showing. Yeah, I mean, we'll probably do it again next week, I think. But like until we see like an actual like big improvement, I think in like peer-to-peer with high latency, maybe it needs to be curtailed. Oh my god, it's a holy fucking shit. There's a clown car. No, Russia is also, yeah, no. Russia is really, really big. It's just because how flat maps have to be, it looks smaller than it is. It's, yeah, Russia's really fucking big. Okay, maybe we don't leave this way. Alright, I'm officially out of ammo. Time to leave a different way. Cannot do timed extract without ammo. No, leave me alone. I said leave me alone. Thank you. Well, that's what I figured. No, like, yeah, that's another thing with the game currently, is the balance of that guy versus not that guy. It's definitely a fairly sizable landmass. The biggest thing about Greenland, you have to understand, like, a lot of it's just ice. It's essentially just like a giant crater that's filled with ice. And crater is being very simplistic, but go look at a topographical map or like a relief map of Greenland, and you'll see what I mean. Nasco, the exact reasons why I came up with gunhead. I'm out of bullets. I really wish I had a gunhead right now. I mean, the first one of the first psyops ever to exist. They've existed longer than that, but like no, yeah, Iceland and Greenland. So Tizane, favorite map, like I would say Frozen Swamps S tier. Ashen Mesa is like a, I would say Elephant and Scorched are probably B's for me. Mech Trenches and Scrapyard are like C's. Cemetery and Stairway are kind of like F's and D's. I kind of want to give Stairway an F over Underground Cemetery, with the premise being that Cemetery actually has a gimmick to make up for its kind of mundane gameplay, where Stairway doesn't. Like they're both, I both do not like Stairway and Cemetery, but at least Cemetery has something going for it, where Stairway is just, I will say the only problem with that guy is that, theoretically a lot of these guys don't exist anymore. But on that note, that's going back to the blending of the genres. It would be interesting for them to approach things as like having these guys be a resource in some capacity, right? People to do things as almost like a city builder light. Yeah, the Stairway, it's important to keep in mind, if we're ranking the aesthetics of these maps, they're all like great aesthetically. It's just this is gameplay considerations or gameplay rankings. But like there was a change to the water lore. We might be seeing too many freeloaders right now in our innards, and they might be gone in the coming weeks, coming months. Yeah, taking it at face value, yeah, we're not literally that guy. But like, if their whole premise of that guy versus not that guy is supposed to be like you can't mow down entire squads of people and get away with it, it misses that, but still early access. We'll see if they can hit that tone. And like, that's the big thing I will say too. I mentioned before, if you go look at all of the media present for this game, play the game, and then go listen to the Q&As, you can definitely kind of get 3 different feelings from each one of those, right? And there's some overlap naturally, but there's 3 very different feelings going on between all 3 of those. Where the rhetoric and the Q&As doesn't match up with the rhetoric in the game, and the rhetoric and those don't match up with the rhetoric in the marketing material. And don't get me wrong, they're not the only game to have the sin of not matching up with their marketing. It's not the first time, and it won't be the last. Frozen Swamp is like one of the first maps where it feels like, and I think it was this, right? The only thing they knew they wanted on Frozen Swamp was the injector site, and then they had to build a map around it. And because they had to build around a map around the set piece, they accidentally had to design an actual map with gameplay. As opposed to Stairway, where they're like, we want our map to be a stairway, and they didn't build anything on the map outside of that stairway. That's fair, little papa. I would say, there's definitely stories, right? Or like, if that's their excuse for not having a story, I feel like that's weak. You can definitely have like ambient storytelling, or even storytelling with your innards too, right? I don't know. It just, It's rough. It depends. You can read into it different ways, but like if I read into it certain ways, that would just raise more critiques. Weirdly enough, though, Blood Panda, it's not the most vertical map, though. It actually has nothing. The verticality is like, okay, so keep in mind too, the map is cool, don't get me wrong. Like the aesthetically, the stairway is really cool, right? But from a gameplay perspective, it uses that, it doesn't use that verticality at all. Like the injector site and Shantytown use verticality way more than that stairway ever does.
As perfect a day as any.
I think the way I would view it, right, is yeah, you're telling the story of your survivors and your innards, right? And you're telling it on the canvas of the greater war, right? And so, in the grand scheme of things, you are unimportant. You are an anthill, right? You are an anthill that's trying to both grow, expand, and like do its thing without being noticed. And so you're having to like kind of like toe this line of both providing for yourself and your innards without like going too far and becoming noticed. In a way, you're almost playing like a stealth game, but on like a city builder. And not even a city builder, right? Because naturally if you go to a city, you're going to be noticed, but like it's literally, yeah, you are an anthill trying to survive. And sometimes you just get unlucky and because you are not that guy. You are not saved by the story. Sometimes you might just get unlucky and someone might stomp on your anthill. Not from malice, just from them being there at the right time in the right place. There's definitely MSG vibes from it, right? Like the inspirations are like a bunch of mech games, MSG, like, you know, Kojima games, and then along with anime too. Like there's a lot of different inspirations in this game for sure. It is a kit bash of genres, or kit bash of aesthetic genres and artists. I wouldn't necessarily say kit bash of like actual genres of gameplay right now. It maybe it could be, but we're not there at all. Yeah, exactly. Little pop of that too. Like for example, sometimes if you're a fire ant, right, you go out and start biting things, you know, you are small in the grand scheme of things and you get smashed. Does that be a quest to this map, or just go into it? Okay, flames. Yeah, kit bashing is always fun, right? It's literally like Legos. When's our Lego crossover, by the way, in Forever Winter? Where's our Lego map? Our secret cow level. I mean, considering there's literally cows in the game, it would be funny to like actually go to a cow level. Like you do some like sequence of events as like an Easter egg to get to the cow level. No. Sniper's no sniping. I think they are trying to explore that night call. Like, we're currently in the very early instances of seeing dynamic respawns. So before, things would just like spawn in front of you occasionally and around you. They're trying their best to move away from that, and the first instances we've seen of that is they removed some of the cyborg spawns, and now bombers will come in and drop cyborgs. Now, it's still kind of based off, it looks like it's still based off spawn triggers, as in like you cross the threshold, it causes the spawn trigger to happen, and then it will have that effect play and then drop the cyborgs in. So it's not dynamic, but it is better than what we have before. Like, it's still very scripted and heavy, and like you can kind of see it's artificial, but it's a much better system than we had before. Yeah, no, I agree with you that, like, yeah, like, there is the issue right now with, like, if you play a map a few times, you're like, yeah, that's scripted. It's not dynamic at all. By the way, tip for new players too. One reason to bring a pneumatic jump, if I hit space right now, I would mantle over this and die, or take a lot of damage. However, if you bring the pneumatic jump, you can get on ledges like that by just using the pneumatic jump instead, and you won't mantle with pneumatic jump. Same thing with railings, right? If I want to jump on the railings, if I'm too close, sometimes I'll mantle over. So sometimes having jump is a much safer way of getting on the railings themselves. But no, like, there's definitely instances where I have accidentally mantled and killed myself. All right, we're good.
Another day, oh, another dollar.
Yeah, oh god. It's kind of crazy too, like, 10 feet's a lot, don't get me wrong, but like, the general rule in D&D, right, is every 10 feet you fall, you take 1d6. The problem kind of being... Thanks, Street, appreciate it. The problem being is that, at least in earlier versions of D&D, level 1 characters could have amounts of HP where they would die from a 10-foot fall. And like, don't get me wrong, you can definitely fall on your head 10 feet and kill yourself, which I guess could be indicated by a 6 or a 5, but like, I feel like if you dropped like 1,000 people from 10 feet, very few of them would die. I don't want to say never, but like, they might break an ankle, break a leg, but die? Well, in D&D as level 1 characters, if you like, yeah, if you fall 10 feet, there's a good chance you might die. I guess naturally the proper terminology would be knocked unconscious, or like basically wounded and bleeding out, but... All right, AK. Let's use a different gun this time around. Let's go to our pistol days. Thanks, I appreciate it. At the very least, right, like, I'm sure the devs see that there's definitely a yearning for Grimdark and, like, a Grimdark setting. And I think 40K is always going to have the issue, right, where it's always was a tabletop first, and it took a long time for it to actually do games right. And so for them to approach it from gameplay first would be, like, them having a Grimdark setting truly, like, tailored to games as opposed, like, you know, video games as opposed to tabletops. Not saying you couldn't do tabletops with them, but, like, first and foremost video games or online media. Yeah, it's definitely not a pleasant experience, Michael, but, like, if you were trying to get down 10 feet, there's definitely approaches you can take to not have it. Like, it's kind of like, for example, if you're belligerent and lock your legs while you're parachuting, yeah, there's a good chance your knees might buckle, you might, you know, break a leg, you might break something or sprain something, but as long as you do the appropriate thing you're supposed to do when you fall like that or landing like that from an airplane, then yeah, you're gonna be good. It might hurt after doing it 100 times, but tuck and roll. Don't lock your knees. It's the weird paradigm too, right? With, like, drunk drivers, for example, as in, like, a drunk driver will get into an accident with, like, a, you know, another car, and it's a horrific accident, but, like, the drunk driver comes out alive while the other family doesn't, or the person doesn't, because for some reason, like, the best thing you can sometimes do is just not get rigid and, like, locked up, because it actually hurts you more than if you're just all loosey-goosey. Same thing can be applied to, like, you know, falling or, you know, jumping out of an airplane. Like, you do not want to be rigid. You want to kind of go with emotions or kind of, you know, roll. Oh. Sir. Man, it's real fucking night and day when you miss the headshot, man. Goes from, like, a nice crisp one tap to, oh shit, oh no, oh god, please. Yeah, I think we're currently still waiting on, like, a lot of different NPCs right now. Why? So, like, they've talked a lot about different sub-factions for certain factions and so on and so forth. So, like, right now, outside of the three big ones, we have water thieves and we have cultists. All right. So this is the first time where I've actually seen the grabber spot here. People have said it. I haven't seen it personally, so I believe them. But, like, I think that's maybe the first time I've actually seen a grabber on this parts of the map during the day. And it just despawned. Or appropriation night call, right? You are appropriating their goods. I have, yeah, during night shift, I've seen them like once or twice. But yeah, the during the night shift, the grabber can't spawn up here. New name for the grabber, the dogger. There we go. Yeah, the dog will spawn up here occasionally during night shifts, and it will patrol around. You can get around it, though.
If it's meant to be, it's meant to be.
Just go ahead and call all the lift real quick. Hello. How's it going? Yep. This is an R8 357. The only gun in the game that uses that caliber. Lever action when. It's good. Playing around a bit, shooting the shit. No.
Enemy contact. Not sure where.
Just playing some good old Frozen Swamp right now. We'll also role playing as a cowboy. Very poorly. You can use it to say, and the biggest thing that'll happen is something else will get. There's a really big reason to loot all when you're on No Hud, because if you identify consumables, sometimes when you're shifting from medkits as you use them, it will go to like an alcohol or a cigarette or something else, right? Or food. So it's almost very important to not ever actually search your loot when playing No Hud. Because it will kind of block off your like, so because I don't know what anything else is, I know if I use a consumable and hear it pop off, I only am using my medkits. But if I like, because it can get like, if you start looking at stuff and getting like food, cigarettes, so on and so forth, it's gonna start blocking off that if you ever switch off by accident. My poor wrist, Michael. That sounds horrific. This is not Kentucky Ballistics. We're not here to destroy wrists. I'm not going to try to solve my mortal wound by putting a thumb in it, so I won't have one in the first place. I don't feel safe here. I'm going to run, actually. I don't like this. I mean, up. Those guys hurt, and I don't think the RA is going to work very well. No, he's referring Law. So Kentucky Ballistics, he's a cool YouTuber who does gun content, and his thing is big calibers and stuff like that. He had basically a pipe 50 cal, and he had a very hot slap round inside of it, and essentially he shot it, and the slap round basically was over PSI'd and blew up the gun, shoving a piece of shrapnel and cutting his neck and cutting his jugular vein. And so naturally to survive, or artery actually, and naturally survive, he actually put a thumb on it. He clamped it, he went into his throat and clamped his artery shut so he wouldn't bleed out. I mean, you can go to his channel too. It's probably his most popular video. By far, right? Yeah, and that's why you don't use fancy rounds and guns. Very hot slap rounds. Yeah, now he has merch called Put a Thumb on It, yeah. Oh, I haven't followed Demolition in a while. There was a time where I watched some of his content, but like, I don't mind gun tubers, but like, I've definitely moved on from like really watching their content. There's only so much you can do before it gets kind of samey. That was kind of the issue with Matt at Demolition Ranch, is that like, there was only so many different things he could explore with guns before it was just like, yeah, okay. Generic gun video number 20 million and 501. I mean, even Kentucky keeps it interesting, right? But problem with Kentucky too, and like in the sense of, I've watched enough of his videos now where it just feels kind of, it is like watching the same thing. It's still cool, but like, it's not novel anymore. Oh, that's essentially what he does now, right? Like, he doesn't... with stuff like that, he won't fire it himself, and like, when he does the stuff he does fire himself, he does, like, do stuff like protect him now. Like a throat guard and stuff like that.
Freedom found underground.
And I will say, like, we won't get into it any further than this. It's always been a political issue, but like, it has got to be exhausting being a gun tuber and trying not to lean into that. Some do a lot more than others, but like Matt, see what I'm saying? Matt was always like trying to make sure it was just gun content and not that, and a few things happened where it pulled him into that realm probably. And it, like, at that point, if I was trying to stay away from that, I would call it quits too, right? Brand's a bit more than memes nowadays, unfortunately. I can't say I'm a big fan of Brandon. I do enjoy his meme content, or I used to, but like, I do not enjoy Brandon anymore. Actually, let's not use Frozen Swamp again. Brandon is the example of leaning into it. Unlike Matt, right? Like, don't get me wrong, like, a walking, talking shitpost is funny, but only for so long. We would make trench reviews. Like, what map? Is it cemetery time? Might be cemetery time, actually. Dude, it's crazy how they did him so dirty. I'm genuinely curious who he pissed off. Because, like, the whole raid on FPS Russia was crazy, right? Like, they were trying to find a way to arrest him and take his guns. Like, it felt like he had to piss off someone, right? There is like a podcast he does too talking about it, or like, it's back in the day. But I am just curious what he did to make everyone so angry. Yeah, all I know is that, like, the only thing I really know, right, is that he essentially got his guns taken away from, like, a very small amount of marijuana on his property. Other than that, they couldn't find anything. So, like, they were looking for a reason to arrest him and take his guns away. Yeah, like, naturally, it reeks of something, like, political or something, like, stepping on toes, like he pissed someone off the ATF. Or the FBI, or some government agency, right? Something went sideways and he pissed someone off. Oh no, yeah, they sent him to jail. Yeah, they sent him to jail so they basically found a way to hit him with a felony so they could take his guns. Yeah, it definitely it has that vibe of, like, not necessarily being about personal rights, but a lot more about, like, he pissed someone off in power and they got upset and then went out of the way to make his life a hell. Or just to hurt him financially, right? Because he was probably making a ton of money off YouTube at the point, right? I don't know how profitable YouTube was back in the day. I have no idea. There's the dog. Yeah, like it was something like, I can't remember the specific, but yeah, Lil Pop. It was like, it was definitely something where it was like, really? You're hitting him with a felony for that? And in a way, that's always what marijuana's been, right? A reason to give just cause. Yeah, let's find our book. Yeah, but we haven't found our book. You see nothing. Book? No book. Oh, that's just like, yeah, that's just a bug, Michael. But them just basically break, like, prisoners do it sometimes too. It just like, yeah, some weird thing happens where they time out and reset. Oh, there's two fucking squads here, really? That's not great. Let me go around then. There's not much merit in trying to make this work if it's not even there. So there's an item in the game called the TAC camera, a tactical camera, and it will highlight a lot of the stuff on the map for you. That's typically how you find them starting out if you didn't want to use guides. And the TAC cam is great for newer players. It's kind of like obstructive after a while for playing the game, 'cause it is kind of a, like, not crutch per se, but like it's a different UI in front of you. But like it's a great resource for newer players who are learning that, like, the spawns and the areas in the game on where items are. Because, like, for example, it is there. So this would highlight if we were like behind this wall here using our TAC cam. It's gonna be the same button we use for jump, or like Q. It's an item that goes in the large item slot in Nightcall, so you need to actually have the camera itself in a slot here, and it's considered equipment, so it'll go off the Q key. So I don't think Eurasians make... I would have to listen to Eurasian. So I don't believe the regular cyborgs make that much ambient noise outside of their twitchiness. I would have to listen to the more not dumb Eurasian infantry or cyborg to see what they sound like. Yeah, that hurts, but it is what it is. You kind of have to explore. Generally speaking, though, if you're like look at the quest log and where it says, it generally will give you an area. Not specifically, but like in a lot of things too. Will so for example, the water map will tell you around the injector site. Hold on, and ban. There is definitely some friction, but if you want to keep it all in game, you will find it in time. There's nothing truly like that hard. Connecting the dots is probably the weirdest because the box you pick up is a regular box you can find anywhere. It's just forcibly spawned. But for the most part, like it's gonna be slower without a guide or using online resources, but with the tactical camera, you can definitely find out where things are. A lot of it does require, though, just kind of some, like, I guess, interpretation. So, for example, Elephant Mausoleum's quest for medbay access, you kind of have to, like, play the map and learn what the medbay is. It does do a decent job of showing where it is, like, from just you navigating around, but, like, it will take you a while to learn exactly where it is. Alright, that's it for today, everyone. Thanks for watching. I'll be back on Wednesday. New video is not in the works yet. I'll think about it. Got some other stuff going on right now, but it will be in the pipeline eventually. Have a good day. See you guys Wednesday. Take it easy, and bye all.